Congressional Budget Office out with its report on President Biden's student loan bailout. The CBO says it will cost more than $400 billion. The analysis estimates Biden's payment suspension for borrowers until the end of the year will also hit taxpayers. The White House, of course, is pushing back, claiming 90% of the student loan borrowers are not likely to take advantage of the plan. That's the pushback. Joining me right now is Americans for Tax Reform President Grover Norquist. Grover, no comment about the cost of it, only the fact that they say not everybody is going to take advantage of it. Your reaction?
This is going to cost more than they said it would. They fooled Joe Manchin, who was told, you know, you're going to help us make the Build Back Better thing less expensive. And then again and again and again, Joe Manchin got taken advantage of. He gave them his vote, and they have just been throwing money up in the air. The student loan bailout, it's not a cancellation of the debt. It's moving the debt that certain students got on themselves to the rest of the country, to people who had no benefits whatever. Every dollar of that will be paid in higher taxes and higher inflation. They're just spreading that out to people who had no benefit.
Yeah, I mean, and here we are once again facing a government shutdown. The Senate will start voting on a short-term budget bill tonight, but it'll only keep the government funded until December 16th. Congress faces a Friday deadline to pass the budget or face a government shutdown. But, Grover, the Republicans keep getting hoodwinked again and again. You've got Chuck Schumer throwing everything he can into this bill so that Republicans say, I can't sign that bill, I'm not going to sign it. So then he can come back and say, well, then we better not include the permitting from Joe Manchin and just do a clean bill with money for Ukraine. And once again, it's okay that Manchin's promises, they renege on them.
Okay, remember what Manchin's promise was that West Virginia and West Virginia alone would get a fix on their pipeline permitting. The other 49 states will continue to live under the ridiculous long years and years of permitting restrictions. Manchin's bill, his amendment, is a bad idea. It also gives all sorts of power to the federal government to force people to use more intermittent energy that people don't want at times they don't want it. It's not like it's a good idea that's not very big. It's a bad idea. What Manchin's trying to put into this bill, in which the Republicans are saying, no, we should have quicker permitting, not years and years and years, not people going through many, many different agencies, one agency quickly. That should be true for all 50 states. The corruption of just giving Manchin to buy his vote for hundreds of billions of dollars of tax increases, much of it on middle-income Americans. Biden lied and said he wasn't going to do this. Manchin made it possible to screw middle-income Americans with these higher taxes on coal, on natural gas, on crude oil, things people of all income levels use, and the attack on their 401ks. That Manchin's idea is a bad idea. The Republicans say, let's give all states quicker permitting. That's a good idea. And the Democrats, of course, have no intention of ever doing that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Journal wrote about this a week or so ago, talking about how little Manchin got. And you're right, it's totally immoral just buying his vote for one state. But I want to get your take on how high taxes are going to go. Who's going to pay taxes in Joe Biden's spending plans next year? You've got a Fox News op-ed out right now, and that's titled, Inflation Will Pick Midterm Election Winner in November. You write this, unlike other issues, Americans are reminded of the cost and policy failure of inflation every single day. And you're right, it's not up 8.5%, the consumer price index is, but when you look at the things that we buy, the things that we pay for every day, like I mentioned, a dozen eggs, that's up 40% year over year. So how is it possible that this administration is planning to make things even tougher for American families by raising their taxes as they face 40-year high inflation?
When Biden got elected, he had a lot of promises to special interest groups that he felt he needed to keep if they were going to fund the next election. And that's what the last 2 years have been. Pre-funding for all the special interest groups that support the Democratic Party, giving them billions and billions of dollars of your tax dollars so that they will kick back money to the modern Democratic Party. So this is not a policy failure on Biden's part. This is doing exactly what he meant to do. It's bad for the country. It's good for the Democratic Party. So what we need to do is, in the next election, change who runs the House and the Senate And remember, when Clinton was president, he spent too much and taxed too much for 2 years. Republicans swept the House and Senate and canceled much of his spending plans. That's how we got the balanced budget, because Clinton's spending plans were dramatically reduced. We took $2 trillion out of what Obama wanted to spend after he spent the first 2 years taxing and spending too much, lost the House, lost most of the Senate, and then the Republicans came in and took a $2 trillion cut off of what Biden was planning to spend. That is what Republicans are looking to do. If they get the House and or the Senate, they will be able to stop some of this massive new spending.
Well, are you expecting recounts in the House? I mean, the majority could go to recounts because there's policy uncertainty ahead of the year-end and Georgia Senate runoff on December 6th. You've also got a couple of races that people are watching closer than others, like Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Nevada. Do you think these issues are as important to those races? I'm talking about higher taxes, inflation, even the cost of borrowing, with the Federal Reserve raising rates as much as it is.
Oh, absolutely. And the Democrats can run as many TV ads as they want. Every day, Americans walk or drive past billboards that tell you what the price of gasoline is today compared to when Biden came in. They get a note from their individual retirement account or 401k letting them know how many thousands of dollars their life savings have gone down because Biden and the Democrats are spending and taxing and going after the business community and your life savings in your portfolio. That's 58% of Americans have a 401k or an IRA. That's not just a handful of people. That's a majority of Americans. They will remember to vote on Election Day.
Well, we're looking at a fourth bus that has arrived at Port Authority right now, Grover. We've been showing all of these buses as they arrive, and right now a fourth bus is unloading, and it looks like it is largely adult males that have arrived at Port Authority in New York City. Kevin McCarthy said he's not signing on to any funding bill to keep the government open unless there's money earmarked for the border. But so far, the Democrats do not want to increase any funding whatsoever to any border wall, to any border agents. In fact, Joe Biden's plan is to have 166,000 IRS agents and about 15,000 to 20,000 border agents.
Yes. Biden and the Democrats are focused on more IRS agents looking and sending you paperwork to do. Every time you buy something or send money through PayPal or Venmo or any of these other efforts, he's going to want you to have all that paperwork and hold on to it and have all your receipts. But he doesn't care about the border. And frankly, the whole Democratic Party has decided they've given up on violent crime. But they do want to make sure that they look over your shoulder when you do your taxes, particularly targeting small businessmen, is what even the IRS admits their target is: smaller independent contractors, small businesses. General Motors are already taxing. They know what they make and what they pay. It's the small business community, independent contractors, that the Democrats want the IRS to go sit on top of.
Do you think the Republicans will be able to end this IRS plan? Biden has earmarked $80 billion to the IRS to hire 87,000 new IRS agents. Will the Republicans be able to stop that? I mean, it's already passed into law.
Well, yes, but remember, if the Republicans are likely to take the House and probably the Senate now as things are moving, you can face down a president as they faced down Clinton. Clinton did welfare reform, which he did not want to do because the Republicans made him. Obama made the Bush tax cuts permanent, which he did not want to do because the Republicans were able to. You can't win everything, but pick your fights, decide what's important, and pick the things that the American people most clearly understand. You can win those fights.
Yeah. All right, Grover, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much.